Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. What if one simple sign on a wall could steady a whole home? Would you trust your own hands over an easy favor? Today we follow James and Diep as a promise turns into action, printing a modest logo, counting every jong, hanging it straight, while old mockery tests new dignity, and teaching little Nye one quiet word to carry far. Steady. If this speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next heartfelt stories. Morning light sits on the porch like a gentle hand. Listen to your aunt and uncle. Be good, she says, voice low and steady. Her steps fade down the path. The house holds the echo. A phone lifts. James speaks softly, measuring each word. Visuals and logo, this afternoon or tomorrow. He will pick them up himself. Background height 60 millimeters, length about 1 meter. Enough to hang at home without shouting. What words belong on a first sign when the promise is still tender? Paper scratches. A small ledger takes shape, registration. Rent at $1,500 a month, 6 months, committed. Partition work. Initial stock in the few hundred, not to boast, to clear a road. What does dignity look like on a page? Ink, numbers, and a name that must learn to stand. Nye chatters about neighbor's child and giggles at her own story. The sound threads through the room, brave and bright. James writes one more mental line. Work splits in two, half kitchen, half signage. 2 hands, 1 day. Does a house breathe easier when work has a rhythm? Diep glances over, no words needed. Only hands that tremble less when they move together. Potatoes in the corner still smell of earth. The scent is honest. An agricultural company can begin here, among ordinary things. Grandma will visit soon. She said she'll buy a gas stove. A kindness placed like a folded blanket at the foot of a bed. Time gathers inside a frame. 6 months for walls to stand. 6 months for a sign to hang straight. 6 months for customers to remember a name. James checks his phone again, confirms. The first task is a call, then a pickup, then a nail set into wood. He closes the door. The silence is not empty. It is packed with work that starts tomorrow morning. A suggestion crosses the table like a bright shortcut. Connect with his father's company. 1 call, 1 signature, and the road turns smooth. He shakes his head. For this new company, we will do it ourselves. He lets the sentence sit. Independence to be worthy, independence to owe nothing to the past. Can love and work both grow if one leans too much on old shadows? Afternoon brings sawdust and the steady hum at Hero. Timber smells like rain that learned discipline. A worker steps close, eyes sharp, voice sharper. Heard you used to be the boss here? The question unlocks a drawer of old papers. The company lost money. You were fired. Study abroad is only a label. The old man gave you companies and you walked away. You followed someone and got thrown out. Keep acting cool and one day you'll sell your car. Each line hits the floor and rolls clattering. James answers once, short and flat. That's personal.
Please focus on your work. Air tightens like a tuned string. The saw lifts its voice. Sparks skip and vanish. He keeps his breath even. In the place he once managed, he chooses silence, so the cup will not spill. What do you protect when you say nothing? The past or tomorrow? He sets his palm on a blank wooden signboard leaned against the wall. The grain is cool and faintly rough, a quiet skin. The sign is new, but it already weighs like a promise. He imagines the letters in simple print, no gold, no bragging. A name that belongs at the level of a hand, an and a harvest. A second jab comes. "Keep acting cool." He does not answer this time. His gaze crosses planks set to dry, a dim mirror of choices already made. Between love and career, he chose love.
Between reliance and self-sufficiency, he chose the second road, not from bravado, from the need to place work made by these hands in front of the people who matter. He thinks of chairs. At Hero, they remember his old chair. At home, Nai's chair has already been pulled close to the table. 2 chairs, 2 languages. Which one teaches a child how to sit up straight and feel safe? He pivots half a step and finds his own cadence, the one that asks only, "What gets done today?" Composure is a polished flaw. People can stomp all they like. The shine holds. The signboard waits, patient. He touches the edge again. For a second, the workshop falls away, and he feels the board as if it were a door. What opens if this hangs right where family can see it first? Evening leans in. He returns home, wiping sawdust from his shoulders with small, practical motions. The house is warm and busy, knees drawing curls on the table like a sleeping leaf. Diep stirs a pot. He sets the day's notes beside the bowl. Win 1,500,000 GX6, 60 millimeters tall, 1 meter long, few hundred for stock, partition work, registration. Each line is a bead on a quiet rosary, a faith counted without words. He breathes, then speaks. "I'll pick up the print tomorrow, before lunch." Diep nods. Something eases at the corner of her mouth. They do not map a solution, they lay out a first direction. Does the heart trust a road more when it begins with the weight of wood and a nail? A neighbor drops by. News travels faster than scooters. "You could call your father's company," he says, friendly but firm, as if offering an umbrella against a storm. James shakes his head again. "This work needs our hands." The neighbor studies him, then the small ledger on the table. He says nothing more. Night gathers on the porch. The path looks like a dark ribbon tucked under the door. He steps outside and tests one hook with his fingers. The metal bites a little. Good. Strong enough to hold more than a board. "Tomorrow," he says almost to himself, "let's make it visible." In the pocket of his memory, Grandma still walks down the path. Her voice threads back through the leaves. "Be good." He hears the line a second way now. "Be steady." A micro wind lifts the corner of the paper order. He presses it flat. The signboard grows heavier in his mind, not with wood, but with meaning. The board was a plan in the morning. By late evening, it is a boundary, not a shield, a simple line that says, "We will stand here together." He pictures the letters, plain and clean, pressed onto the surface. He pictures Nee looking up at it, the way children read a clock by feeling time. He pictures Grandma touching the lower corner to check if the edge is smooth. He turns back to the door and looks once more at the hooks. The porch light rests on the wall like a small moon, enough to find the place where the first nail will go. What do you call the breath a man takes before he lifts a hammer, the past loosening or the future arriving? In the room behind him, a chair slides, a spoon touches a bowl. The house hums, a soft yes. He steps inside and closes the door with care, as if quiet could help the letters dry. No one applauds a well-timed retreat, but without that step back, where would tomorrow's sign hang? Morning waits on the threshold like a quiet guest. James leaves early. The printer calls, ready by 10. He nods, thanks, pockets the phone. The street smells of rice steam and motor oil. His pace is steady. He counts the steps the way a man counts breaths before a promise becomes public. The shop bell rings once. Paper and solvent greet him. The technician lifts a rolled sheet. The logo sits plain and clear. No glitter, no gold. Background height 60 millimeters. Length about 1 meter. Letters simple and clean. He runs a palm along the edge. He pictures the wall at home. 2 hooks, 1 nail he tested last night. He pays and folds the receipt flat, a small guard for the ledger breathing on their table. "Careful with the corners," the technician says. "I will." The roll settles into his arm. Protective, not possessive. Home is a short ride, but a long thought. On the porch, he lifts the roll like a quiet prayer. Diep opens the door. Her eyes find the logo and soften. She steps aside without a word. On the table, the small ledger waits. Registration. Rent at 1,500,000 a month. 6 months committed. Partition work. Initial stock in the few hundred. The list looks less lonely now that the sign has joined the room. They eat quickly. NI volunteers to hold screws. Her hands are serious. She keeps 2 in her fist. Metal cool against warm skin. Grandma arrives with a gas stove, just as promised. She rests her palm on top, claiming the rectangle like an elder, claiming peace. "I'll help lift," she says. No lecture, no test, just help. They mark the wall with pencil points. The first hole takes a moment. The drill jumps, then finds its center. A sparrow lifts from the lemon tree and circles back. They hang the board. It tilts right. James steps back. Breath, a small adjustment at the left hook. He tightens it by feel. The line straightens, the board settles, silence sets like plaster. He steps closer. The letters meet him, not a crown, a name that has work to do. For a minute they say nothing. The house feels larger by an arm's length. The phone buzzes. "Hero!" Off cuts at the back gate. A brisk voice and a laugh that tries to bruise. He keeps his tone even. "Stack them, I'll come by." He looks at the sign again. It looks back, calm and still. "Bring dust home," Diep says, smiling faintly, "for proof." At Hero, the gate yawns like an old mouth. Sawdust swirls in a wind that cannot decide. The worker from yesterday spots him first. "Heard you put up a sign," the man says. "Already acting cool again?" James nods to the stacked offcuts. "Thank you for lining them up. I'll load." The man waits for a spark. James offers none. "Invoices are with Hung," he says. "Ask Hung for any past answers." He lifts the first bundle. It is heavier than it looks. He accepts the weight without a sound. He loads a second, then a third. The man's mouth moves, then stills. A plank almost as long as the room passes between them. For a breath, it is a wall built of choice. When it clears, the man has turned away. Inside James, something clicks a notch, the way a picture finds its true slot. He drives home with offcuts nudging the tailgate. The road shakes loose a thin rain of dust. He thinks of 2 chairs. The old chair at Hero, which never fit well after the day it buckled. The small chair at home, pulled close for knee. One teaches posture through pride, the other through love. On the porch, Grandma wipes the new stove with a damp cloth, as if blessing it clean. Nye opens the door, eager to see what dust looks like on a father's shirt. Diep stands by the wall and, for a moment, looks only at the sign. They measure the counter. The stove fits as if the space had been waiting all along. Grandma lights it. The flame rises and holds like a hand raised in promise. James washes his hands. He dries them on the towel. Nye lifts like a flag at half-staff. His thumb pauses on her knuckles. "Steady," he says, not loud, not sharp. She smiles. Steady. They keep the word. Hooks, heat, ladle, ledger, steady. Evening moves in one patient inch at a time. He writes 2 more lines in the book. Partition work begins Monday. Initial stock ordered, a few hundred. He draws a box around the rent, 1/500,000 Joao X6, not to worry it, to honor it. He steps to the sign with a cloth. He wipes a corner, checking for residue. The letters do not smudge. They have decided to belong. Light lands on his chest, soft as a hand. Memory or blessing, he cannot name it. What do we need tomorrow? He asks the wall. The room answers in small sounds, pan to shelf, chair to table, Nye's pencil to paper. Grandma's slip at a tile, each sound an item on a list without ink. He looks at Diep, she looks back. No speech, just a breath held together. He clicks off the porch light. The board holds a square of darkness now, like a night window. Behind it, you can almost hear Fields breathing. No one claps for a step taken back at the right time. But because he stepped back, there is room for a sign to hang straight. There is room for a stove to hum. There is room for a child to carry a word a long way, steady. Tonight, a modest sign and a steady flame changed more than a wall. They marked where love and work will stand. James chose quiet courage over easy shortcuts. Diep answered with trust. Grandma pressed the edge and blessed the room. And Nye learned a small word with a long life. Steady. Maybe that's how homes hold, by hands that keep showing up, by numbers honored, by chairs pulled close. If one moment stayed with you, the first drill bite, the board leveling, the word steady passed from palm to palm, share it in the comments. Your stories help this home grow. If this felt true, tap like so more people find it, and subscribe to walk with us as the stove hums, the ledger fills, and the fields breathe behind the night window. Until the next chapter, keep your promises small and your steps sure. Good night.